Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Either on yesterday's video or the last video, whichever one it may be, I discussed the books that I did not finish in 2021, and today we're now looking at what are the worst. And I say the worst because these aren't books that I didn't finish, but they are books that I might have finished but I just didn't love, or on a couple of them I didn't like them and I didn't enjoy them, and I probably should have DNF'd but I kept going because apparently I hate myself. So let's get breaking down those books that I did not enjoy as much as maybe I should have this year. Most of these are ebooks, or I don't own them anymore for pretty obvious reasons. I've just written these down in a random order, so they're not like date specific. But I'm going to start with Max and the Spice Thieves by John Peregrine. I could not get on with this book. I felt the pacing was really bad and really off. The characters were bland, and it just felt like the last quarter of the book could have been done as its own book. And I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me and I didn't have fun reading this. And I think it took me like 4 months to finish reading because I had it as an arc, so I wanted to get it read so I could make sure that I got the review in and things, but it was a real slog and I really struggled to enjoy this book. The next book on this list is A Deal with the Elf King by ELISE KOVA. I know a lot of you are going to be coming at me for this one because I know so many people who adored this book, but it was just very meh for me. And I think it's because, as I said in previous videos, I'm still not kind of sold on the whole Fae books. It's never been my genre. It's never been what's kind of gotten me interested before. I'm more of a like assassins and thieves and heist type and like battle type fantasy than I am fairies and magic and fae. And this one, it wasn't the worst. It had an interesting concept, this one, and I really liked the introduction of like the shadow void, and that there are there's this world in between the mortal and the immortal plane where things happen. I thought that was really interesting, and the dynamic of the Fae world needed this mortal to become the queen, and it's her life force that keeps the Fae realm going. That was brilliant, and I thought that was really well done, and I thought it was a really fascinating concept. But just the relationship between the two main characters, it felt a little disjointed, which I know it was supposed to be, but even when it came together it just didn't quite feel right for me. And I don't know, just a lot of elements within the plot I just didn't enjoy, and I was kind of coasting through this one a little bit. I kept putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. It didn't get to a point that I was like, I need to now finish this. And I know there's a second book out, which a lot of people have said is better than the first one. And it's a companion novel, so it's not a direct sequel, but it does feature the same setting and some of the same characters. So I'm interested, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so if it's still on Kindle Unlimited in like February, maybe I will. Next, I'm going to go for my actual physical book, and that is The Promised Neverland by Caillou Shirai and Posaka Demizu. I probably said that wrong, I apologise. And I've seen clips from the anime that had me interested, and I've seen artwork from this and I was like, ooh, that looks really dark and gothic. But again, I have discovered I do not cope well with books that deal with child abuse and the killing of children. And this one did it in a pretty graphic way that kind of, it shocked me and shook me, and I was reading this just before bedtime. And yeah, probably not a good book to read just before bedtime. It's basically set in this orphanage where the kids discover that they're actually being raised as food for demons. And essentially, the more intelligent they are and the higher they score on these daily tests, the longer they will live. And these two, I think it's like the two oldest ones, they discover that the youngest one, who's the latest one to disappear, they were told she's been adopted, and then they discover that night that she's actually dead and being given to the demons as food. And then they just sort of basically try to figure out what's going on. And I don't know, the premise, I thought it was going to be a lot nicer than it was, and I knew it was going to be dark, but I just didn't expect to be quite so perturbed by it. I think if I'd have read this when I was like 16, I would have been all for it. I'd have enjoyed it. I would have been like, oh, that's really grim and really dark, but I would have carried on. But as an adult, where it's like I'm starting to want children of my own, and I'm like, oh my God, if that was one of my babies, and no. So that's definitely one that I will not be continuing, just because the subject was a little bit too disturbing for me. Next is The Confectioner's Truth by Claire de Luna. This is the third and final book in the Confectioner series, of which I had read one book every year. And oh, it was such a letdown. For one, I can barely remember what happened, which is never good. Like, a good series with a good finale, like, so you should, like, 2 years later, still tear up when you think about certain things that happen. Not saying that I do, but I do. And this book, it introduced new characters way too late. So it was like, hey, here's these characters. You're supposed to now have a really visceral reaction. Oh, wait, they're done. And it's like, oh, okay. It felt like they brought in this new character just to cause a bit of conflict, which again didn't feel necessary. Things felt like they wrapped up super, super quickly. And I'm not into the romance in this series. I would have much rather it gone a different way than the way that it ended up going, and I was just really disappointed. And I just kind of got to the point where when the book finished, I actually had like a sense of, oh, thank God. Like, I'm actually glad that this is done. And it's a shame, because I had really enjoyed book one. I kind of enjoyed book two, and then book three, it just got to the point I was like, nah, I'm done with this series now, I'm bored. Maybe I left it too late in between books, but yeah. It did still get 3 stars because it was good enough. There was one character, who I'm not going to say for spoilers, there was one character, their storyline was brilliant, and it did a full circle and I loved it. So that one redeemed it, but no, I did not enjoy that book. Next we have Lumberjanes by, I don't remember the joint author, but one of the authors is Noelle Stevenson, who is famously known for the graphic novel Nimona and the TV series She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I really liked the characters and I liked the ideas. It's like this group of girls at a summer camp who get involved with these fantastical adventures, and it just seems like everything they try and do that's normal, they end up getting swept away into this like massive adventure. Kind of like South Park, where even when they're trying to just do something really mundane, it ends up becoming this huge big thing. And except this one has a lot more fantasy element in it and less swearing. But as much as I liked the characters, the storyline itself just left me very confused, and I was a bit like, I have got no idea what's actually meant to be happening here and what's going on. I do want to carry on the series because it was only book one, there are 20 volumes in total, so I do want to keep going and I want to see at least the next 1 or 2, and if I'm still really confused and still don't know what's going on, then I will give up that series, but I do want to give that one a fair go. But yeah, it just kind of, the characters were interesting, the storyline was confusing as heck. And then the final book on this list is potentially going to surprise a lot of people, not because it's not my favourite, but because of how popular this book actually is. In fact, I think it won in the Goodreads category that it was in. I think it either won or it was like in the top 3. So I just did a very quick check because I couldn't remember the author's name, and I thought her name was Jessie something. And I was like, that can't be right, because it seems like I've disliked quite a few books by people called Jessie this year, but no, I am right. And it's Dialé for Aunties by Jessie Q. Santanto. I will give it credit where credit is due. I laughed my ass off on a couple of occasions in this book, but I didn't give a crap about the romance, and I felt that it was just so ludicrous, and the whole thing, it kind of reminded me of the film that's set in Las Vegas the night before the guy's wedding and all the stuff that goes on. I can't remember the name of it. I will find it and put a little thingy up here. But it just kind of reminded me of that kind of genre where it was like, there are parts of the film and parts of the book that are funny and make me laugh, but the overall concept is just so hyper unrealistic and so stupid that I was just like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry at how ridiculous this is. And I think that's kind of like the logic part of my brain that just is kind of like, I don't understand why that would be your reaction. Like, you've just accidentally killed someone in self-defense. Why would your first instinct then be to put that person in the boot of your car? Why? And I couldn't get my head around it. And it was just like, it got more and more and more ridiculous as the book went on. I did finish it, but it was a struggle for me. I can definitely see why it's been picked up for a movie. Like, absolutely, there was no question. I was like, yeah. Even as I was reading it, I was like, there's no way that they're not going to want to pick this up. Aunties were fantastic. I will give them that. The aunts were incredible and I loved them. Especially when it's like one of the aunts gets greeted with this dead body and immediately she's just like, right, okay, let's crack out some Tai Chi. It was like, what? And just their answers to everything were funny, but it was a bit too ludicrous for me. I can see why people loved it and I can see why it's going to do well. But for me personally, it had elements that were brilliant and it had elements that I absolutely hated with a passion. And if I never have to read that book again, I will be fine with that. So those are my books that, even though I didn't DNF them, I perhaps just didn't enjoy or was very let down by and disappointed in. Let me know in the comments if any of these were books that you either loved or also were not a fan of. Next video is going to be my surprises of 2021. Mixing it up a little bit. So we've had the real bad, now we've had the not so good, and then we'll have a little bit of a mix where we start to bring some good stuff in, and then we'll get on to the really happy stuff and the best books of the year. So stay tuned for that. Well, not stay tuned right now, stay tuned for the next video. Or click on the next video if it's already uploaded. And I am waffling so badly. This is what happens when I don't take my medication. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to love you. I'm going to leave you. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. I hope you're good. I hope you're safe. And until the next video, see you later. Bye.